Radiant's middle tower has fallen. Radiant. Middle barracks are under attack. Dire's bottom tower has fallen.
Hi guys, BigMonD here, and I've got a quick Dota 2 guide for you. This one's going to be on warding. This is going to be a basic guide.
Not
so I'm
yet.
not going to go over really advanced stuff. I might show you a little bit.
I'm way ahead.
But you need to be really familiar with the map and familiar.
It's
and
not
know how
time
people
yet.
are going to move for the advanced stuff. So I'm going to go over some basic stuff that will, give you a big advantage in pub games. I have got cheats enabled, so I can just get around the map quicker to show this off. So what we'll do, we'll start off just by showing you some good starting ward locations. Generally, what you're going to want to do when you start a game is whoever buys the wards, you're going to buy a pack of 2 wards. In most pub games, you won't be buying sentries. You should buy sentries, but in most pub games you won't end up buying sentries, so let's assume that you're not going to. You want to give one of the wards to the other support character, so that you can get a ward at the bottom, he can get a ward at the top of the map, so you can get 2 starting wards out. And where they position them is really important. There are a lot of places that are reasonable, but as far as I'm concerned there are 2 perfect places. Now what you want to do is get sight on both of the early ganking routes and the runes. So to do that, for both Dire and Radiant, you want to put a ward here. If I put a ward here, notice that gives me sight of the rune if I just back off. So that gives me sight of the rune. But it also gives me... If you look at the map and look at the amount of sight I've got here, it gives me all the sight of this area. So if I'm fighting and I'm fighting here, regardless of which side I'm on, it gives me some warning when somebody's coming in to gank. It gives me warning when somebody in the lane is maybe coming around the side, or when they're coming around here, when they're just trying to sit behind the trees and get behind me. So it gives me warning from both sides, gives me plenty of a notice, and it wards the rune. So there are other places you can ward the rune here, but having the ganking route early on.
Look lively now! Your middle tower is under attack! How
really
disappointing!
I mean, obviously there's plenty of ganking routes and they change as the game goes on, but this is...
Look lively now! Your middle tower is under attack! What are you, amateurs?
So we're not going to bother warding the top rune. Well, we would sometimes, but I'll go over that in a minute. We're not going to bother warding the top rune because we know if we've got sight on one rune, if one rune doesn't spawn, it's spawned at the other spot, and the runes spawn every 2 minutes. So we only really need to ward one of them. So your bottle carrier can check one rune. If it's not spawned at that, you can run over to the other one. Now the other ward you're going to want to place, as far as I'm concerned, is on this rock under this tree. Now, exactly where you place it will vary, whether you get a bit more view into the jungle or you get a bit more view up the lane. But if we place a ward about on this rock, and then get me out of the way, you see this gives us sight down here. We have sight up here a little bit. We have sight up here, and we have sight down here. Now, if you've got a jungling character on the enemy team, on the Dire team, you will probably want to put this ward as close to the tree as possible because it gives you a little bit more sight down here, so you've got more chance of being able to spot them when they come to take the hard camp, and that's the one they're most likely to be vulnerable at. If you've not got a jungling character on the other team, you want to place it a little bit lower, a little bit further down on the rock, maybe about here, because that'll give you more sight up here, so it'll give you a little bit more warning when they try and come around the side. So both, there's not a big difference between either, because when somebody comes around here they're probably going to sit about here anyway. But It's a small detail. It's worth taking note of. Right, now occasionally, if you've got a pudge on your team,
Your bottom tower is under attack.
you may want to place the ward in a slightly different location at the start. Now, the reason for that is because we want to give Pudge free access to hook. Now, if you're Radiant, and you want to give sight of the Dire, you may want to place one of the wards here, because that just gives us sight
Summon the will to defend your top tower.
of the rune, but it also gives us a massive amount of vision up here. So if I was a Pudge, I could
Your
wander
top tower
around
is under attack.
and I know when the enemy gets in position for me to hook, because I can see them, and they're not going to expect me to be able to see them. And the same is true on the other side. If I'm playing a Dire Pudge,
Of
and I want
course.
sight, I could place a ward here, and that gives me sight pretty much down to here. Obviously you won't be able to see it now because I've got sight from the tower anyway, but it gives me sight about down to here. So again, as a Pudge, it gives me a massive advantage. Now, you might think,
On it.
you know,
Your top tower is under attack.
you know, as a support, that's never going to get me a kill as a support. But if I can put that up and like Pudge can get sort of 2 kills,
Your middle tower
first
is
5
under
minutes of the
attack.
game, because he's got one of these wards up, that's going to make him snowball. He's going to come for a gank much earlier in the other lane, so it's going to advance
Your middle
all the
tower
lanes.
is under attack.
Right, so another couple of really good ward spots that you probably want in almost every game you play.
Your middle tower is under attack.
You can actually ward the enemy base from outside it. Now, if you notice, if I sit here and I want to, you have to be really careful where you place these, because if you place them in the wrong place,
Already moving.
the enemy will see them. They'll get revealed by the tower. There's one there.
I go.
Close enough.
Ugh.
Yes, it gets revealed by the tower. But there's a little spot in between both towers where
As the
you can
arrow
place a
flies.
ward. So you can place one about here, and watch what happens if I go to place it. So my character tries to run round.
On my way.
However, if I manually walk as close to it as I can get,
On it.
which is right next to this tree stump, I can put a ward there. And the same on the other side. Stand just under the tree stump, and you can just about get a ward up there. And look at how much sight that gives me in the enemy base. I mean, if you're trying to push uphill and you're not confident about winning a fight, it can give you such a big advantage to get a ward up there. I mean, especially if you had a Pudge on your team. If we had a Pudge on our team, he'd be able to hook one of them down really, really easily.
Look lively now. Your middle tower is
If you're a
under
support
attack.
for
How
75
disappointing.
gold for this ward, you can guarantee your Pudge can land an easy hook from outside the base, from somewhere that's safe. And you force the team to fight and try and chase and try and save the person the Pudge hooks, or just sacrifice him and fight 4-on-5. So it's a massive deal to get wards up here. Now, if you're playing as Dire, there is exactly the same thing the other way around. I stand next to the tree. You can just about put one in the base. So you have to be really careful, because if you're
I gust onward.
too far away, your character will try and manually walk round. So if I try and place one here, for example, you try and run round, so you just end up running into the base. So you need to be careful of that. Right, now, so they're wards you're going to want to place any game, regardless of how the game goes, regardless of how the game is progressing. You know, when you attack a base, you want wards there. When you start the game, you want wards here. Okay, so other wards you might want. Now, we could ward Roche. Now, there's lots of different ways you can ward Roche, and exactly where you ward Roche really should depend on what team you're playing as. Now, if you're playing as Radiant, what you want to do is you want to get maximum sight of the Dire side, so that you get more warning, you more chance to spot them. And to do that, the 2 places you can put it, we can put one up here.
Look lively now. Your middle tower is under attack. What are you, amateurs?
Sight up here, and it shows me a little bit of sight of people coming down here.
Your middle tower is under attack.
The other one I want to place if I'm playing Radiant is I might want to put one up here. Now if I put one up here, for example,
Oh.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
now that gives me sight near the enemy's secret shop, so I might catch them going to the secret shop, catch somebody out alone. It gives me sight on the enemy's ancient.
Procrastination could spell the end of your bottom tower.
And Storm Spirit off. Again, I might catch somebody going for an early early ancient camp, which they're going to struggle with a bit if they take it early, so it's a chance to catch them when they're vulnerable. And it gives me a lot of sight of people that are likely to run down here to go to Roche, so it gives me a lot of sight to check for Roche. Now if I was playing the dire side, I might want to place one up with the turtle. I'm just getting in vision. So there's a little turtle here. I can't see him. They put one here. There's a turtle somewhere in the trees. No, I think he's only out in the daytime. Right, so if I put that one there and then blink away, you see that gives me vision all the way up here. It gives me vision down here. It gives me vision here. So it gives me quite a lot of vision of the area around Roche, and of course it gives me vision of the river near Roche. So it wouldn't give me vision of an enemy trying to come this way. It wouldn't give me much warning of enemy trying to come this way, but if I'm playing as Dire, Radiant are much more likely to come out of their jungle, so this gives me much more warning. The other place I can put one is up here.
Oh! On it.
And the reason I put one there is because it gives me vision of this route as well. It doesn't give me as much vision this way, but it does give a bit of vision that way, and it gives me vision of the rune, obviously. So I get a bit more warning of people changing lanes if they're stupid enough to come through the river, and I catch people better changing lanes here. I mean, look how far down that gives me vision. So you catch people changing lanes, you catch people coming swapping lanes for a gank, and like I say, it gives you vision of Roche. So if I were to put a ward up here, all that gives me vision of is the rune and the river right by the Roche pit, and a little bit of vision at the steps. So it doesn't really give me a lot of vision. All the other wards around it give me better vision of one side of the river or the other. And so if you're playing Radiant, you don't need to watch for enemy entering Roche from your jungle unless the game is already going really badly. And at that point you probably can't get out of your base to ward anyway. So right, lastly we've got offensive and defensive warding. We'll go through base defense warding first because that's going to come up in every game. Now some of these are going to be the same for aggressive warding. Most notably is the really obvious one up here. Now that gives you a massive amount of vision because a ward placed this high will give you a big area of vision, and you probably want to place it there regardless of which team you're on. If you're attacking the Radiant, you'll probably want one there. If you're defending as Radiant, you'll probably want one there too. Now the reason for that is you will very often catch a hero come out to jungle here. Now if you're Dire and you're attacking the Radiant, sometimes you'll get a Radiant player who's like, oh well, I need farm, I don't want to just sit stuck in my base, and he'll come out to the nearest jungle camp to try and pick up a little bit of farm, and you'll catch him there, and you'll be able to catch a hero out on their own. It's an easy kill, and then all of a sudden the fight's 4 on 5. It's exactly the same the other way around. If you're playing Radiant and you're defending your base, you may find that the Dire decides to get a little bit of farm in your jungle, and by having a ward here you can catch somebody out of position on their own, you can jump him, and then again all of a sudden the fight is 4 on 5. So it's really, really good to have a ward here. Now that's a little bit obvious because it's really easy to be dewarded. So other locations you might want to put one is here. That's a good defensive ward spot because it gives vision all the way up to here, it gives vision up here, and it gives vision of all the low ground here. For the mid lane, you'll probably want to place one somewhere here because that gives you vision of the jungle camp, it gives vision of people coming down here. You probably want to place one on these steps. Now exactly where you place it depends whether you want more vision down here or more vision up here. If you place it here, it will give you vision on this route. If you place it here, it'll give you vision up that route. Both will give you a little bit of vision up this route, but it just depends whether you want it up there, and that depends how the game's going. If you're Radiant, you'll probably usually want more vision up there, because the enemy are not likely to be coming from here. If you're Dire and you're attacking, say, this tower, you want vision down here, so you can see the enemy trying to come round and flank you. And the other place you might want to put one is you might want to put one around here. Now if I put one up on these steps, it gives me a vision of all of this area, and it gives me a vision of the low ground. So if I'm defending here, it's really, really useful. Now if you have a Nature's Prophet in your game, or you have a Broodmother, or any of the pusher characters that rely on their own units that can feed gold, having wards here when you're defending is really, really, really critical. And the reason for that is usually what you'll find is you will see Nature's Prophet when he's here. And if you see him when he's here, even if you TP back immediately, he's going to hit your tower or your racks with his Treants, or Broodmother's going to hit it with the Spiderlings, and by then it's too late, because even if you TP back immediately, your tower's going to take some damage, they're just going to go invisible and get out. You can take a little, even if you respond perfectly and immediately, you're going to take a little bit of damage, and he's just going to keep coming back and chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. As if you've got a ward here, and you can see him when he's coming down from this far away, you can get back and you can be ready with your nukes, sitting here, ready to take his Treants here, and all he's doing then is he's feeding you gold. And every time he comes for an attack like that, he's just going to feed you his Treants and feed you gold. And if you can make sure you catch him when he's here, when he's sort of here, rather than when he's actually got to your tower, he's just going to feed you gold and feed you gold and feed you gold, and all he's going to do is he's going to be buffing your team. So that ward's there, ready to watch for Nature's Prophet. Massive, massive advantage. So if you've got any pushers like Nature's Prophet or Broodmother that can feed gold, make sure you get wards up there. It will really, really benefit you and your team. You'll get a ton of gold from it. I mean, I tend to, when I'm playing any nuker, Puck, Lena, any nukers like that, I would, even if my supports are being useless, I would waste money on a ward, because for 75 gold for the ward, I'll come back, I'm going to easily get that back from killing the Treants, and I've also got an opportunity to go for a kill on Nature's Prophet if he sticks around, or on Broodmother if they stick around. And it's a really good way to take pressure off your team and just farm up some extra gold. Okay, and there's exactly the same is true on the Dire side. So if I go up to the Dire side, I'll show you the equivalent locations of the Dire. They are a little bit different. I'm going to take some tower aggro while I do this. Right, on the Dire, you don't want to place it right up on the step. You probably want to place it here. The reason for that is it gives sight along here.
My feet fly.
So it gives sight along here as well, whereas if I were to place it just on the steps, I'd only have sight.
I'm under attack!
Not as many ledges on the Dire side, but if we were to place one on the steps, we get some vision of about half the lane, and we get vision up here. And if we place it again, if we place it on the steps, we get about half the lane, quite a lot of the lane actually, and we get vision up here. So both these wards are good if you've got pushers on the enemy team. They're also good when you're attacking this tower, because they give vision of the enemy if they're trying to flank you. They're good if you're defending this tower as well, because if you're defending this tower as Dire, sometimes the enemy will come up this route to try and flank you. If you've got a ward here, you can see maybe two of the enemy heroes coming around this way, and it's an easy pick off. Whereas if you wait for them to get in position to strike, they're going to hit you with all 5 people at the same time. But if you can see them coming early, you can get in position to sort of 5-on-2 them. And then all of a sudden you've got 2 kills, the enemy's not going to want to push up against the tower with only 3 of their heroes against your 5. You've turned a push and you've got 2 free kills out of it, all for the cost of that ward. It's an absolute bargain. The last one that's the equivalent is up here. Again, we can place one on the eye. That's going to give us the most vision of the area, but it's a little bit obvious. So the other place we can place one is about here. Again, we don't want to place it right on the steps, because it'll only give us vision up here. So if we place one there, it gives us vision down into the jungle as well. So again, reasonable ward spot there. Shows people jungling. It will show us lots of area of people switching lanes. But a little bit obvious. It's dead easy to de-ward. Right. Now the other places you place wards are really going to depend on what tower you're attacking at the time, how the game is progressing. What you need to ask yourself is, how can I place a ward to catch my enemy in a vulnerable position? Now if you don't know the answer to that, usually the safe bet is to just pick up on areas where you can ward a wide area at the same time. I mean, by all means ask your teammates. Now if I place one somewhere around here in the Radiant jungle,
I
that gives me
gust
a
onward.
massive amount of sight of the lane. It gives me all of this area. So it gives me a massive chance to catch people going for jungle farm or changing lanes. Again, warding near the Roche pit. This will give me a massive amount of sight of people jungling or changing lanes. If I place one up here, it gives me a massive amount of sight of people jungling or changing lanes. Same with this one, the one I showed you earlier for Roche. That will give you a massive amount of sight of people jungling and changing lanes. Now we might want one up here. Now again, this is one where you have to really bear in mind line of sight. So I might want to place a ward here, because that will give me sight down here, but it will not give me sight up here because the rock's in the way. Or I might want to place one up here, because that will give me sight down there and loads of sight up here, but it won't give me sight down here because the trees are blocking it. Or I could place one here and I get a little bit of every direction, but not a lot. So it depends whether you're about to attack a tower, depends whether you're just looking for jungling heroes. If I wasn't sure where to place a ward, I'd probably just put it here, because that gives me the widest area view and the biggest chance to catch somebody out. And again, then I would probably want to place one somewhere, maybe here. Again, it gives me a massive amount of sight. It shows me 2 jungle camps so I can catch people jungling. Massive amount of sight of the dire jungle. So it's good for catching people out. Now if you had a Spirit Breaker on your team, any of these wards that catch people switching lanes is going to give you a massive advantage, because as a Spirit Breaker early game you can't really get into team fights a lot. You're quite easy to be burst down. Spirit Breaker is someone who he tends to snowball. So the best way to shut him down is to kill him off early. So you will find if you're playing with people, they'll focus you down in a fight, and he is a little bit squishy depending on what build you go. Early game, I tend to go for all attack power, no tank build, so it's probably a little down to my build. But if you can get wards up on all these places that catch people crossing routes, you might find that Spirit Breaker will find a Crystal Maiden that was switching lanes for a gank. He gets an easy kill on the Crystal Maiden. That gives him a load of gold, a load of experience, and you stop them from doing a gank. You can then go into the lane she was heading to, and your guys have got an advantage in that lane until she's respawned. And if you get half a dozen kills like this as a Spirit Breaker, it's going to give you a big advantage in gold and experience, and make things really difficult for the enemy team. So just putting a couple of these wards out so you can catch people out as they change lane, big advantage, particularly if you've got a Spirit Breaker. I mean, you know, guys, knowing where the enemy is can make or break a game of Dota. If you know the enemy team is split, you can send your entire team to pick on them, so you can catch them out of position, and you can make every fight 3-on-5 or 2-on-5. It gives you a huge advantage. Catching people out of position will win you games, so you need to do it as a support. And if a support isn't doing it, it's still worth spending the money as a carry. You shouldn't be spending the money as a carry, you should be focusing on damage items or tank or stuff like that, but if your support aren't doing it, it is still worth warding. Another really good one, you've got this on Dire and Radiant.
Of course.
In the early game is when you're attacking a tower, quite often you'll find, if you're down here, if you're down here and you're harassing the tower, and you're harassing the enemy heroes consistently, you'll find at some point they'll sit with low health and they'll come and they'll hide at the back of the tower, and they'll come back past this point, and at that point you can't see them, and you don't know, have they gone back to base to heal, have they backed off to get some regen, are they just waiting for their regen to kick in? Now what you could do is you could put a ward here,
Oh.
and then once you've got a ward there, you come around the front of the tower and you just harass the hell out of them. Once you see them on low health,
As the arrow flies.
you can swing around the back, and this applies to almost all nukers. Anyone who's got a decent ranged AoE or a decently powerful ranged stun like Vengeful Spirit or Sven, once you see the enemy is low health, they've backed off. I mean, you probably find that they're sitting here. They're thinking, oh, I'm nice and safe now. They're not going to be able to dive the tower this far. And you can just come around here and easy kill. And I've just got 300 gold from a kill, all for the cost of 75 on that ward. It's absolutely worth doing. I would probably wait if you're having trouble doing damage to the enemy. It's probably not worth wasting the ward. But if you're finding that you're getting some decent harass on the enemy, put a ward at the back. It's definitely worth it. And if your mid is going to come up for a gank, get a ward at the back, because you'll probably find that sometimes you'll catch two heroes up here and there might be one enemy hero that's come to help them, and they could be sitting at the back because they've not quite got into position yet, and your mid ganker will see that an enemy is coming into. It's not as often because you know you have to have both sides trying to gank at the same time, but your mid ganker, you can catch the enemy out of position trying to get in position for a gank. Now, if you're playing Dire and you're attacking the bottom tower, we've got exactly the same opportunity to ward there. It's actually a little bit better if you're playing Dire. This is an advantage the Dire team has. If you're playing Radiant and you come toward this, you can be spotted. Whereas if you're playing Dire, if I come round here, notice I have no vision of this area. Now, if I come in,
Already moving.
if I'm sitting here, you see how I can't see? I can only see a tiny little slither.
Splendid.
So if I'm here and I go to place a ward there, I don't step out into where I can be seen,
On my way.
and that gives me a huge amount of vision down here. And again, exactly the same principle. I'd just come around here, I'd harass. If I was leaner, I'd just drop in Dragon Slave on them. As Wind Ranger power stuff, you know, any decent ranged nukes. And once they're low and they're back off to heal, I'd come around here, I'd get myself in position where they can't see me, or they struggle to see me, and bam, easy kill. And this is an easy position to run from as well, so once you get that easy kill, if you can't take on the enemy carry, you can get straight back out. You know, even if I was on like 200 health myself, I could still come in and get this kill and then just run, because by the time they react, I'm gone. Even if I wasn't Wind Ranger and I wasn't ridiculously fast, by the time they react, I'm gone. So that's a really good warding spot. And you'll probably want to do the same thing. It's a little bit more laborious to do on the hard lane towers, but you can do the same trick. It takes a little bit more jogging, but it can help you mid position for a gank. So if I come up here, I might want to come round the back and place a ward here. Now it's going to be much more difficult for me to push up and get the harass kill because it's a very long jog round. But let's say I've got somebody with decent range like a sniper or a pudge in mid, or somebody with a blink strike. I'm support, I come and put a ward here. Then what I'm going to do is we're going to harass as much as we can, and then we just say to mid, okay, they're quite low, come up now, and they get an easy hook or an easy assassinate from the back. They know when the enemy is sitting back, trying to play safe, and they won't expect you to come from the jungle. They won't. Exactly. Oh! We've got exactly the same spot across on the Radiant, on the Dire side. Sorry.
Oh! It's not time yet. Not yet!
If you're wondering why I'm left-clicking my abilities, it's not because I'm a noob. I'm sitting back in my chair.
I gust onward.
Again, exactly the same thing. I can ward sort of... Just make sure you don't get in tower range, but somewhere about here.
Of
It
course.
gives me a little bit of sight of people coming in and out of the lane, but it gives me sight of anyone hiding behind the tower. And again, if I was a pudge, if I was the mid character here, again, I could just I could just harass and harass, and then I could come round their back for an easy kill. And that's you know, getting easy pickoffs like this, safe easy pickoffs, is what will give you a big advantage while you're playing Dota. You need to do this. Most people in Dota will try and team fight, and they'll try and win team fights on reaction. Some people will just passively farm the jungle. And the problem with that is, as you get into higher and higher level games, the enemy will be doing the same thing, and you can't out-farm somebody if you're both just farming the jungle. So in low-level games where people just tend to just sit and wait for a fight to happen, you can go to the jungle, you can out-farm people. As you get into more experienced games, you get into ranked matches, or if you ever do decide to go pro, you can't just passively farm the jungle. You need to find easy pickoffs. And if you buy 10 wards in a game, chances are you'll get 10 kills by getting easy pickoffs. And those 10 kills will make you an easy team fight in the next team fight. Those 10 kills, you imagine your last time you lost a close game where you were 10 kills down. Those 10 kills would have made the game in your favour. What about a time you had a really hard game where the kills were even? If you had another 10 kills, that would have been an easy game. I guarantee you guys, go into next game you play, go in, play as support. Every time wards are available, buy wards. Even bad warding is better than no warding. Just bear in mind line of sight. I mean, quite often you see people putting wards in really bad locations. Like I'll put one here.
As the arrow flies.
And you see, that gives me vision of the rune. It gives me a little bit of vision of the river. But it doesn't give me a lot of vision. Whereas if I were to place it here, on the eye, that gives me the same vision, but it gives me much more the other way. So just bear in mind line of sight, try and place wards in high areas if you can, and consider, is a tree going to block the view of the ward? It's always a good idea to do. And try and consider before you place it, how often is an enemy going to be in this spot? If you've got an enemy jungling hero, you could place a ward in his jungle camp to block the camp from spawning to slow down his farm. Or you could place a ward here and wait till he's on low health and then come in and jump him. Or would you rather block his farm, or would you rather get a kill on him? Because getting a kill is going to stop his farm anyway. It does very much depend. I mean, blocking camps is definitely a very good strategy that you should use. But you know, sometimes it's good to get a kill. I mean, certainly this area, if you know you've got a enemy hero that can hit the hard jungle camp early on, rather than placing the ward here, I'd probably place one up here so I can get better view of down here, so I know I'm guaranteed to see them when they're on low health. If I'm sitting here as Radiant, I'm just going to push and push and push, and when I see him on low health down here, I'm just going to run off, come round, and I'll destroy him. And that's going to completely shut down a jungling hero, keep getting kills like that, because as jungling heroes, to become effective junglers, they need to farm up lifesteal, they need to farm up health and damage to make the lifesteal more effective. If you can stop them doing that, that hugely slows down. Most jungling heroes don't become effective junglers until they've got some decent lifesteal and decent damage. So if you can get a couple of early kills on a jungler, you're going to have them out of the game for 10-12 minutes. Which is, you know, you're going to be 4 on 5 for like 10-12 minutes of the game at least. Massive advantage, just by putting that ward here. So yeah, guys, I hope this has given you a bit more appreciation of warding, so you can see their advantages, you can see how useful they are. I really hope you found this video useful. If you have, please share it with your friends. Even if they only play carry, share this video with them so that they can appreciate how useful you are as a support. The fact that having this ward here got the carry the kill, it wasn't just because they're awesome. Most carries think I have lots of kills, I'm awesome. That's not true. If you didn't have support, you wouldn't be getting as many kills.
Right.
So yeah, share it with your friends, guys. Make them all better at Dota. Unless you play against them, then maybe not. Maybe not. If you play against them mostly, don't share it. Don't share it. I'm kidding. Share it with everyone you can. Let's make everyone in pub games good at Dota, guys. I'm kidding myself. That's not going to happen. Let's make everyone we can ward effectively in Dota. Let's make everyone good supports, because we need more supports in Dota. So guys, if you found this video useful, I would really appreciate a like, a subscribe if you want to see more like this. I'm going to be putting up an advanced warding guide later, which will include true sight warding, a little bit more situational warding during team fights, and so on, and blocking and stuff like that. So yeah, subscribe, keep your eye out for the next video, and I hope you've enjoyed it. See you later, guys.